Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for our Little Italy podcast. And boy, am I excited to introduce you to our guest, Grammy winning singer, songwriter, producer, who has performed for more luminaries, presidents, heads of state, Steve Tyrell. Thank you so much for being here, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Gosh, I'm so excited this worked out.
I'm to be on any show called Little Italy or something.
And I love the sweatshirt. You told me you got that in Italy last year.
I did. Yeah, I've played in Italy for like the last 6 or 7 years, but this year I won't do it because of COVID.
Right, because I know you do a residency there, right, at Monteverde. Isn't that it?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, beautiful. We'll talk about that in a little while. But I thought I always enjoy starting with someone's early years because your parents are of Sicilian descent primarily, right? And you grew up in Houston.
Yes,
Tell us, yeah.
I'm Italian on both sides.
Yeah.
My mother's side was half Calabrese and half Sicilian, and my father's was all Sicilian.
What's your birth name, Steve?
Stephen Louis Vallejo.
Oh my gosh, look at that little baby picture of you. Oh, Mr. Vallejo, it's just such an honor to have you here. You look how adorable you are. Now, are those photos from Houston growing up?
Yeah, now that's where my family had an Italian grocery store. That photo that just went by was me and my buddy on my tricycle outside. But we had a grocery store with a house in the back, and like a lot of Italian people did in those days. A lot of people lived in the hood, and that's where I was. That's where I was born and raised. And well, I was actually born in Mineral Wells, Texas, with my father at the end of World War II. But then we moved into our family grocery store, which was started by my grandfather and grandmother.
Right, and they also had a restaurant, I believe, too, right?
Well, not them, but my family does. Carrabba's, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a very well-known restaurant. Tell us a little bit about that.
Very big, famous restaurant. But we just went there and ate and didn't, pay the bill.
You didn't work there, I'm guessing, huh?
Really, no. I did work there, actually. When they first started, and I got a job in the kitchen making fettuccine Alfredo.
Oh. I'm going to hope that, yeah, it's a good job to have and great to learn how to cook the Italian style early on.
I knew how to cook fettuccine Alfredo. I knew how to do that in my sleep. I don't want to do it now, though. It's too fattening.
What was it like growing up in Houston as an Italian kid, right, back in the day? And this is also about 20 years even before the civil rights movement was taking place. So it was a challenging time, right? Could you tell us about that?
It was totally normal to me. I didn't, all my friends were black, because there was no segregation. I mean, there was segregation, there was no integration. And,
right.
I loved it. I would never change that part of my life. I loved growing up in a grocery store with all black friends, and then my family. My family were all Italian, so we used to eat grits marinara.
Yeah. Did your parents speak Italian at home to you primarily, or did they integrate? How'd that go?
They spoke when they didn't want me to understand what they were saying.
Isn't that the truth? That's how it always was. And that's how I learned broken Italian. It was when either they didn't want me to hear anything or they were so angry that they would be speaking in Italian. I'm quite sure that with their, right?
Exactly. That was exactly it. They would, so, you learned all the Italian words they were trying to hide from you too, very quickly.
When did you get the bug, Steve, to sing or to write songs or do all of it? What were you like as a kid in school, high school, all that?
I could always sing. I would sing in the back of the car. I thought I'd be a drummer is what I thought when I first started. That's what I used to sit in the back of my father's and mother's car with a coat hanger, and because it had the paper on it, you remember those coat hangers that had paper on it? Well, if you hit them on the back of the seat, they go, they sound just like a hi-hat. So everywhere we went, I would be banging on the back of my father's car to the music that he had on the radio, and that's what I wanted to be, was a drummer.
Now, y'all grew up listening to a lot of the Italian classics, right? Like, what was playing in your house as a kid?
Well, Mario Lanza was big in our house, you know, of course, Frank and, you know, the Italian singers were, you know, we listened to all the time. I remember Mario Lanza and even Caruso. The great Caruso would be played in my house, mostly by my grandparents. But Perry Como was big. I used to say my prayers. My mother used to tell the story. I'd go, God bless my mother, my father, Perry Como, Frank Sinatra, and Mario Lanza.
Oh my gosh, that's why they had such a good life, probably. Oh, that's terrific. My dad too. My dad loved Mario Lanza. And yeah, we used to play Mario Lanza music in my house, especially as he was getting older and wasn't all that well. And it just did so much for him. He loved that music. But
movie where he played Enrico Caruso, remember?
Yeah.
And then the other half of all of my musical influences came from my neighborhood, you know. So we heard, you know, Louis Jordan, Louis Prima. That was a blend of both, you know.
Yeah.
And let's see, Bobby Blue Bland was big in the neighborhood, you know. Just
really gives us a flavor of what it was like growing up then during that time, especially in the South, which was a very interesting place to be growing up as an Italian kid, right? Especially, as you said, you grew up in the Fifth Ward. But you also had an idol as a kid, right? A sports figure who later comes back into your life. Who was that? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yogi Berra, you're talking about. Well,
yeah.
We were always big Yankee fans because they had all the Italians, you know. All of my family, they had Phil Rizzuto and Joe DiMaggio and Yogi Berra and Mickey Mandolini. You remember him?
Wait, that was his name? Mandolini?
Mickey Mandolini was his name. He was really
I did not know that. I didn't know that. Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, you got me there. I swear. Oh my God!
No,
and
it was
your
all
comic too.
Yeah, I that's a joke I've used for years. But I loved Mickey Mantle too. But Yogi was my man always. I was number 8 on every little league team, high school, you know. And then I grew up and became friends with Yogi. He started coming to my gigs. Joe Torre's a good friend of mine. And when the Yankees made their run back in the 90s, I was very involved with the Yankees. Because I was playing in New York, you know, and I'd go to the stadium all the time and hang out with George Steinbrenner. You remember him?
You're talking about Steinbrenner? Yes, I do. You're not. Let me tell you, get me once. You're not going to get me twice. You're not going to get me twice.
No, they just got 2 good Joey Gallo, and you know, they just got some Italians back on the team again. So I sent them a note saying, you know, it's about time. Now we can start winning. You didn't have enough Italians on the team, but they're back. Better
believe it. You know, I hate to jump around too much, but just why not, since we're talking about Yogi Berra. So you were number 8 as a kid on the ball team. Let's cut to many, many, many years later when you were a very well-known singer. And I believe that you were singing at Yogi Berra's 88th birthday. Is that correct?
He invited me to do that. We were already friends by then. He started George Steinbrenner, of course, you know, who owned the Yankees.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, was a big fan of mine, and he would invite the team. And I met Yogi from George, and of course, telling him how much I loved him my whole life, and you know, we bonded real quickly. And he started coming to the Carlyle when I played there all the time.
Right.
Every year, Yogi would come there, and he'd come on opening night, I mean, because he knew that I would get press from it, you know, which is really cool of him. He made sure he made sure he came on opening night every year that I played there. Then it'd be in the paper, you know.
Yeah. No, that was what a wonderful friend to do that, right? That
Totally.
is a
I mean,
beautiful
he knew what
thing.
he was doing. You know who else did that for me all the time was
Who?
Regis, who's half Italian.
Yes, Regis was half Italian, so he did that as well. I
Regis
read
would do the
once that
same thing.
Marilyn Monroe would often do that, and she would show up at the front row to some of the black singers to make sure that they would, in fact, perform and be invited back to perform again, which is very interesting. So, what a wonderful friend you had in Yogi Berra. Now, let's take it back to Houston and that drive up to New York. You were 19 years old, right? And you said, what, mom, dad, I'm heading out of here. I'm going to New York to
Well, I got
pursue a
an
music career,
offer.
right?
I got it. What I wanted to do was go to the World Series, and
Oh,
as at 18 years old,
yeah.
I went to New York for the first time and went to the World Series. The Yankees lost that World Series too, and when I was there at that particular time, I met this lady, Florence Greenberg. I was already making records and local records in Houston, and I had started a little bit of a producer career. And I met this lady named Florence Greenberg, who had Dionne Warwick and Burt Bacharach and Hal David writing for them. And
Oh, wow.
and I gave her an idea for something that I thought would be good. And she said, well, why don't you produce it? So, I mean, I was like 18 years old, and I went in the studio and with this band and, this orchestra, and recorded 2 songs with the Shirelles, and who were on Scepter Records, and 2 songs with a guy named Chuck Jackson, a great rhythm and blues singer. And the session went so well that she offered me a job. She said, go back to Houston. You can come to work for me, pack your things and come up. So I went back to Houston. I got my buddy, his name is Gristle, Clarence Holloman, one of the great guitar players I ever heard. And I said, Clarence, I got a job in New York, man. Why don't you come up there with me? And maybe I can hook you up with Burt Bacharach and some of those people.
Wow.
So the two of us got in a car and drove from Houston to New York in 1964 through the South. I'm so proud of my mother for not stepping in and saying, are you crazy? She let me do it. Had a little party, my father and mother, before we left, had all the family there, and we got in the car the next day and drove to New York. And when we would drive through some of those redneck areas, I'd have to let Gristle get out of the car when I needed to get gas. I couldn't pull up to a service station with him in the car with me. So I would drop him off on the outskirts of town, fill up the car, swing back, pick him up. He'd lay in the back seat and put a blanket over him in case a cop went by or somebody went by. And we went all the way through to New York that way. And nothing happened, thank God. But it was dangerous in those days. We could have gotten strung up on a tree,
What an awful time, honestly.
Yeah,
For everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly for Gristle. And I'm sure that when he finally got to New York, it was probably breathing a sigh of relief because it wasn't quite the South, even though there were still so many problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you went through, it started, I mean, even like Philadelphia, and when you started getting up, it was still pretty racist. It was just not as safe. And
Wow.
he went up there, he did great. I introduced him to, he was going to, be the musical director for the Shirelles. Everybody loved him because he was great, but he didn't like it.
Really?
Ultimately, he went back to Houston.
But you did like it. So tell me a little bit about your career, starting when you went back. You were working in the Brill building. I mean, it just must have been such an exciting time for you, right? A young guy. Who were you working with then?
I'll tell you something. I loved Monday through Friday.
I'll bet.
Saturday and Sundays, I did not like. I remember hating that time because there was nobody around that was my age. The record company, all the people were in their 30s and 40s, and so I'd get lonely at night, But eventually, it all worked out. I found the Peppermint Lounge and the Peppermint Twisters. I was off and running in New York City.
Yeah. So tell me some of the early days of who you worked with,
Well,
how you met them, the kind of records that you were involved with them. I mean, everyone from Burt, Dionne Warwick,
well,
I believe it's Barry Mann, right? Tell us about that.
well, I almost right off told the lady who owns Scepter Records, Florence Greenberg, I said, I got a guy down there that you should sign up to this label. You know, he's the best singer down there. We were kind of like competing bands in high school. And so she listened to me, Florence did. And his name was B.J. Thomas. And right out of the box, we had that song, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. And it was a national hit. So that immediately gave me credibility with the record company. And then we had,
wow.
we had, it was almost immediate. Like within a few months of getting my job, we signed B.J. Thomas. And we had a #1 record with I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. And then I started, in those days, I was a promotion man and a record producer, and I didn't want to be an artist. I had given up I didn't care about being an artist. I didn't care about singing in front of people. I was more interested in finding songs for artists, producing, going in the studio. And so that's what I did. And I let my singing career just evaporate. Like I wasn't interested in it. And, you know, things started to happen. I discovered Memphis, one of the places that I really liked, which turned out to be a wonderful music hub. Everybody was going to Nashville, but I liked Memphis because they had the more R&B sound. And so I brought BJ down there, and we worked in a studio that became very legendary. It was called American Studios. And this guy that owned it his name was Chips Moman. And then we recorded Hooked on a Feeling down there, and The Eyes of a New York Woman. Then I brought Barry Mann there, and he wrote I Just Can't Help Believing. And we got on a roll in Memphis. That was
wow.
very successful.
I love the story about Raindrops. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how that whole thing developed?
Well, by that time, BJ had a couple of really big hits.
Yeah.
Hooked on a Feeling was a big hit, but then he cooled off a little bit, and also brought the guy who wrote Hooked on a Feeling. His name is Mark James. He was in a band with me in Houston, so I brought him up there too, and he ended up writing some of the biggest hits of that whole era, including the biggest hit that Elvis Presley ever had. My guy, Mark James, wrote Suspicious Minds. You know that song?
Wow, I didn't know he did that. Incredible. I didn't know he wrote that.
I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby. You know, and we were swinging, man. Things were working out just great for all of us. Mark became rich. BJ was,
I'll bet.
You know, and getting to Raindrops, I'm sorry, I digress. There's so much stuff.
No, there's so much stuff. How do you keep track in your own head? Because I can't keep track of it.
You asked me the question, and then I wouldn't even remember that if you didn't ask me. Anyway, I was working with Burt and Hal David and Dionne, promoting their records. They were on the same label, and they were getting these movie songs. Like Dionne recorded Alfie. You remember Alfie?
What a beautiful song.
What's it?
Who wrote that?
David wrote it.
Yeah.
And I remember the night we recorded it. They didn't think it was very commercial. No, you know, they didn't. As a matter of fact, I think it ended up on the B-side of something like Trains and Boats and Planes or something, if I remember correctly. Anyway, they were getting these movie songs jobs. Burt Bacharach and Hal David were. And every year, and they were becoming the biggest things in music, you know. Every year they'd get nominated for an Oscar, and every year they'd lose for some reason to some dumb song like Shim Shim Cherie, I think beat out Alfie, you know, for the Oscar. And they got a job working on a movie called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Burt, saw that bicycle scene and gave him the whole idea of that song. Burt Bacharach never wrote one lyric on any of these except for that one. He only would write the music, But when he saw that bicycle scene, he said the words "raindrops are falling on my head" with the music came to him. So he gave that to Hal David, and they wrote the whole song. When they started playing it for people, and they had the job, it was going to be in the movie, it wasn't received very well. People turned it down. They played it for Ray Stevens, that guy. At that time, he had that song, "Everything is Beautiful." Remember that?
I do.
He passed on Raindrops. Said, no, I'd rather write my own songs. And they played, I think, for Neil Diamond. He didn't want to do it. So somehow, in the midst of all of us working together all the time, I pushed really hard for my buddy BJ. I said, why don't you use BJ Thomas, for God's sake, to sing that song? We're from Texas. It's a cowboy movie, for God's sake, And I don't know if it was a product of elimination or whatever, but they went for it. And BJ went in the studio with Burt and Hal and me and Florence and all of us and recorded that song. And it became the second biggest hit of the entire decade. Only song that sold more than "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head" of that whole decade was "Let It Be" by the Beatles.
Wow. Well, if you have to be upstaged by anyone, I suppose "Let It Be" in the Beatles would be the song. Right?
The one that sold a little bit more than "Raindrops," but it was #1 for 5 weeks. It was great, and it took us to the Oscars together. Because BJ was asked to sing it.
We're going to talk about that in a second. I love some of the stories that you've told about the Oscars revolving around going because of that song. But wasn't it one of the actors, I believe, when he heard "Raindrops Keep Falling," he was like, wait,
Robert
what?
Redford didn't like it. He didn't like it. Robert Redford didn't like it at all. Which, he was the star of the show, but he wasn't the Robert Redford that he is now. When Butch Cassidy came out, it was Paul Newman was the man. Robert Redford, I think that was, but so he didn't have that much to getting him to kick the song out, but he didn't like it. He definitely didn't like it. He was not a fan of "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head." But
wow.
Ultimately it worked itself out.
So much of my time I spent during COVID watching documentaries, in particular about musicians, and how music is made and how it actually becomes popular. And sometimes you really wonder, it's just a decision of one person sometimes where it just pivots, whether it was the Eagles or Aretha Franklin or whoever else. That was a great series, the Genius series. Actually, I love that. And, just watching how it all develops. Is it kind of tough when go ahead. I
was just going to say, it's a lot of luck in everything, when it's right and somebody does it. Like if Ray Stevens would have done "Raindrops," who knows? It might not have even been a hit.
Exactly. Let's go to the Oscars now. Sorry, I keep cutting you off, but I think we have a little bit of a feedback there. But let's go to the Oscars with that song, which was pretty tremendous. You had one heck of a night, right? Who were you sitting next to?
Oh, yeah. We went, I was sort of like BJ's producer and his manager-ish, and
Right.
His comrade, So he gets asked to sing this at the Academy Award. Now, this is after it's been #1 for 5 weeks in America, and it was a huge hit. So we go to the Oscars for the rehearsals and everything else. And the night of the Oscars, when you're going to sing on a show like that, they put you in the first or second row. They don't want to be looking for you when it's your turn and you're in the bathroom in the lobby. So I mean, it's little stuff like that people don't think about. So I was on the second row with BJ. He was on the end seat, and I was one end. And we were waiting on our time. Who was sitting next to me? I forgot already. Raquel. Oh yeah, Rock. How could I forget that?
How do
Rock,
you forget Raquel Welch? Oh my gosh.
Raquel
But you know
Welch
what?
was right there. Well, I was petrified to talk to her. So I never said a word to her. You know, I didn't know what to say. She had her husband or somebody with her, but I was hoping she'd start talking to me. I would have probably figured out something. But she was sitting right next to me. And BJ goes up and does this song. He's a nervous wreck and he knocks it out of the park, you know. I mean, you can Google
Wonderful.
it. And they made such a major production of it. If any of your friends want to Google the 1970 Academy Awards with BJ Thomas, you'll see there was like 1 million bicycles and dancers. And I said, man, we've got to win tonight. They've spent so much money on this song. It kind of almost tells you that they know you're going to win. So he was nervous, but he did great. And then, and it did win. And Burt Bacharach and Hal David finally got their Oscar. And we went to the party afterwards. And they have the after show party. And now BJ's feeling good about himself. You know, everybody.
Oh yeah.
They know who he is. Nobody knows who I am. And we walk in and he sees John Wayne over there. And he says, hey man, let's go talk to John Wayne. And I said, sure. I mean, he's gonna know who you are. You just got through singing, you know? And I said, but you go up there, man. I don't want to go up there. So BJ goes up to John Wayne's table and he says, Mr. Wayne? And it's like ice cold. He almost doesn't, he thinks he's messed up because he doesn't say anything and then he hollers at the waiter. So he thinks, I'm standing behind me, they're going to throw us out or something for doing the wrong.
Oh no. Oh no.
We're frozen. We don't know what's going on. We just stood there. The waiters come and John Wayne is drinking a milkshake. It's after dinner. And he has 2 milkshakes, actually. And he tells the waiters, he says, get rid of these milkshakes. And he said, bring me 2 fists of Jack Daniels.
Oh, my gosh.
You can't make this up. He pops it down on the table. He says, okay, boys, now we can take the picture. He didn't want to be photographed with the kid who just won the Oscar singing Raindrops, you know, with a milkshake in front of him.
Oh my God, that is hysterical. What a great story. What a great story. Please tell me you've got that photo somewhere, or maybe we even have it, but wow.
I never found that photo, honestly.
No?
I never, you can go and you can see that, you know, he's there and we're there and you can see the guy that we became friends with that night. I mean, we were intimidated, man. It was like, Bob Hope was the master of ceremonies. We're these 2 guys from Texas, you know. And,
oh, heck yeah.
You know, but the one guy that we bonded with almost immediately was Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper was nominated for Easy Rider.
Wow.
And he was there with a white cowboy hat. Your fans can look it up, 1970 Academy Award, Dennis Hopper. And we're talking to him and we're feeling, you know, he's like a contemporary of us. He wasn't intimidating us, you know. And that was the first time in, I don't know, like 15 years or something, that Elizabeth Taylor had gone to the Oscars. And if your friends, if your audience Googles this, she had this big diamond necklace that Richard Burton had given her. It was the big talk. I don't know how many carats it was. So when she came out on the stage at the Oscars with that big rock and Richard Burton behind, the whole place went nuts. You know, everyone gave her a standing ovation. Now cut to the dinner that I'm talking about afterwards. We're talking to Dennis Hopper. She comes into the dinner and Dennis hollers at her from across the room.
Hey, Liz.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Liz, you know.
Oh my.
And I go, Dennis, are you nuts? They're going to throw us out of here, man. And when they And when they search you, we're all going to jail.
Oh my God. What a night for you. Oh, so what happened?
That's right.
What happened?
So you can't imagine what Dennis Hopper's holding in his pockets. You know, it was the drug time, and he was known for that. And I told him to shut up. Meanwhile, Liz looks over when he hollers at her and goes, Dennis. And he goes over to her, and and they embrace, and you could tell she like really liked him. And I'm thinking, how the hell does she know him? You know what I mean?
Right.
A hippie motorcycle rider. And she's the Queen Elizabeth. So they talk for a while. He comes back, and I tell Dennis, I said, man, that was impressive. I must tell you, that was impressive. Yeah. I said, what did y'all talk about? He said, well, remember how Dennis Hopper talked?
Yeah.
Well, I said, Liz, is that real, Liz?
And I'll bet you her answer was, oh yeah, right?
Yeah, her answer was, you bet your ass it is, Dennis, and the tits are too. That's what she said.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and you're still sort of kind of.
That's what she said.
Oh my gosh. And you're still sort of kind of the kid. You're still sort of kind of that kid out of Houston. I mean, you're not really, a teenager anymore, but gosh, I mean, your eyes must have been this wide. I don't know. Did you go back to your hotel room and call up Mom and say, Ma, you won't believe what happened? Did you do that and call back home? Because that's what I would have done. I would have said, you won't even believe this.
They were all watching, because it was the Oscars.
I'll bet. Yeah.
They knew BJ was going to be there, knew that we were going to be together, and they were all very proud. It was a night I'll never forget, I'll tell you. That'll be in if I ever write anything, that definitely will be in it.
That's one of so.
Tell that story too. He was the most impressed with John Wayne more than Liz, actually. He would tell that story many times.
But you gotta love it, right? John Wayne was drinking milkshakes at the Oscars, but didn't want anybody to know it. Nope, not for that image, right? So he just puts him aside and he goes to the heart.
Rock and roll guy just called. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He thought that was going to mess up his image. I guess. I don't know. He just said, we were frozen there. We thought we had stepped across the line. And he said, waiter, get rid of these milkshakes and bring me 2 fists of Jack Daniels. And he put them on the table. We still don't know what's going on when he asked that. And then he says, okay, boy.
But especially back then, if I may say, because a star was really a star. They were in their corner and you were over here. How beautiful. Yeah, let's talk about your involvement, which actually ended up getting you a Grammy with Rod Stewart. Tell me about that.
Well, I made my first standards album.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year it was, but it was called A New Standard.
Right, so we're jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead. Yeah, let's do Father of the Bride before we go too far. Okay, so you've been someone behind the scenes now all this time. There's this movie coming up, right? You're going with Martin Short, Steve Martin, and of course, I think writer-producer Nancy Meyers, right? I believe.
Nancy and Charles Shire directed it. Nancy and Charles were the reason I was there, not Steve Martin.
No,
I didn't know,
Right, but they were in the movie, right? And you show up with this song. So tell everybody what happened.
So in the movie, I had worked on the movie for the music, which I had done a lot. I worked on a lot of other movies too. But Father of the Bride was I was hired to do the music. Like I would be in charge of recording and picking whatever songs. I had to do it with the director. I mean, she wasn't going to do what I said there. Charles was the director of that. But we would brainstorm and say, well, what about The Way You Look Tonight at the reception? Because the whole idea was Steve Martin was supposed to walk in. He's his daughter just got married and he can't get to her. And if you remember Father of the Bride, he's constantly trying to get to where the reception is. And when he walks in, we thought it'd be great if the singer was singing The Way You Look Tonight. And he sees his daughter dancing with her new husband for the first time. We thought that would be a moment, and it was too, big moment. So I did, Bob Mann actually did the arrangement of that for that. Like we tried to make it like what a band would sound like playing it at a reception. And I sang it, and they said, well, you just sing it. We don't need to get anybody else. So they shot me singing it at the reception, and it went so well. I mean, you could tell a lot of people, because that song was from, I don't know, 1930 or something.
Yeah.
People that were there, all the audience, all the people that the extras, they kept coming up to the bandstand when we were shooting that song, saying, "Oh, that's a beautiful song. Did you write that song?" I wish, but that we were getting those. We could tell we had done something good.
Yeah.
So I told Charles, I said, man, and Nancy, I said, why don't you put that over the end of the movie too? And at the end of the movie, when she goes off on her honeymoon, you bring the song back and let Ray Charles sing it. And I will produce it with Ray Charles. And that'll be your signature song for the Father of the Bride. And that was my idea. And so they said, okay. So when they previewed the movie, they didn't bring Ray Charles yet because they were still previewing it for audiences. So they just took my version and put it also over the end of the movie. And every time they screened the movie, the audience would say, who's that guy singing? Boy, that's a great song. And they ended up using me at the end. And I went in and recorded the end version with 90-piece orchestra. And that started my career really as an artist again. I started getting record deals offered to me and people telling me, hey man, you should make an album of this. I remember Steve Martin telling me that night, he said, man, you should make an album of these kind of songs. And I told him, who the hell would buy it? Steve Martin said, I would.
Ooh.
He did say that exact thing. He said, I would.
So then you did your first album.
Right.
And this album that's about to, drop in 2 days is number what? This is 13. Which one? This is number 13. Mm-hmm. So then that was your first album. And that I know that you've had such incredible success. I believe most of them, if not all of them, were the top 5, right, on the Billboard Jazz charts, right? Go ahead. 12 of them.
Well, 11 of them made the top 5 and one of them made the top 10. So
amazing. Amazing, Steve.
It made number 8 or something. But all the other ones, all 11 up before that, made top 5 in the Billboard Jazz charts.
So it's like your career really pivoted without you even realizing it was about to pivot, right? You show up, with this song to hopefully be in the film. You're singing it because here's the song. And they're like, no, you're doing it. And then your career takes a whole different turn. Right. And you start performing again. Go ahead.
Well, I started getting booked. People started saying, they knew me from that movie. Let's get the guy that sang in that movie. And then I started getting offers to play at different places, there'd be a night at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, that was a night. We have so many stories and we're going to end up running out of time. But can you very briefly tell us about that one at the Hollywood Bowl?
Well, the Hollywood Bowl was a night, that was a different situation. That was the night that Frank Sinatra was inducted into the Hollywood Bowl Hall of Fame.
Right.
And the whole Sinatra family, from The Way You Look Tonight, because Frank had a swinging version of that song,
Yeah.
Became fans. Frank Jr. Was great to me. Mrs. Sinatra, his mother, both Mrs. Sinatras, Barbara Sinatra, all of the Sinatra family became fans from me singing those songs. And I don't know what I was leading to. What was I leading to?
Well, we were talking about you were asked by the Sinatra family.
Oh, yes.
Part of that evening, yeah.
Right. Well, that's another evening. Frank was inducted into the Hollywood Bowl Hall of Fame. And the Sinatra family asked me and Quincy Jones if I'd go to the bowl and sing their father's Fly Me to the Moon, So I did. It was kind of Quincy was conducting.
I mean, do you ever just stand there at that moment, right? Even though you had been quite a success, do you ever just stand there and say, "Are you kidding me? I'm at the bowl and I'm doing this with Quincy Jones, being asked by the Sinatra family? Like, pinch me." Do you still
The
do?
thing that hits me the most, and it's great for your show, is my mother. If my mother
Ah,
knew I was singing for the Sinatra family at the Hollywood Bowl, she would come up out of the grave and be there that night. You know, because that was her and Mrs. Sinatra were the kind of the same age, you know, people, same experiences, and so I
I love that image because that's such an Italian image. They'd come up out of the grave. They wouldn't believe it. I
no,
just did
she'd
something
be
not too
there.
recently. Go
Yeah, my
ahead. Go ahead.
mother would, you know, she was a Bobby Soxer. She was a Sinatra fan. All my family is a Sinatra fan. You know,
Hmm.
so for them to ask me to do that and to have liked
Be a
what I've done of their father's music is a great honor in my family. You know,
Yeah.
biggest honor you can
Um,
have, actually.
I do not want to forget about Rod Stewart. I'm going to get back to him. We will
Oh yeah.
finally get to him, but I want to make sure that we mention all the luminaries that you have played for. Okay, you've played for presidents, Bush and Clinton, Desmond Tutu.
I've even played for
This
Donald Trump, but you don't want to say that.
why not? He's a
Well, I
president. You
mean, you
played
know,
for
it
him, and
was well, it's not politically correct, but I played at Mar-a-Lago too. You know,
yeah,
uh, I played for everybody except Obama. He never asked
interesting.
me. Yeah, well,
Oh,
he's never asked
interesting.
me. I'm sure he doesn't have anything against me. You know, it just didn't come up that I could. But
No,
everybody,
no. We got to ask him because I know that he just had a big birthday bash. Maybe next year we'll just see if we can figure something out. If maybe
I,
we'll send this to him. We'll say, "How about at your next birthday?" I mean, come on.
yeah, I
But
know. I would like to do that because there's a gap in my president's singing. You know, I would love to do something for President Obama.
okay, we got to get that to happen. But you know what's one that always stays with me, and I don't even know why. I'm not this giant fan of his, but when you were asked to sing for Prince Charles, I don't know if it was at his birthday or somewhere, and there you are with Janine. I just somehow love this photo. There's something about being invited to Buckingham Palace. It's like, my gosh, what hasn't this man done?
I
You know,
know.
what
Pretty.
was that like? I
Well,
mean, just being escorted in there. Yeah,
I think he had seen me at the Carlyle.
right. Which you had a residency at, right? That's in New York.
17 years I've been playing there.
Beautiful.
A
You'll be
lot
back there once this whole COVID thing,
of
you
hosts,
know, yeah.
And but somehow I got the message that Prince Charles would like me to come to Buckingham Palace and sing at his. I forget the name of his event, but it's his own event. It was Prince Charles's event for his big charity, and
Gosh.
so I did it. You know, it's great. I mean, we didn't all expenses paid, the most first class you could possibly get.
Where'd you stay? Hang on. Where did you stay? Where did they put you up?
Some incredibly brand new hotel that had just opened in London. Forgot the name of it, but it's famous now.
You know what, Steve? That's just to me one of those experiences. You know, as a journalist, we've seen some pretty incredible things, right? Inaugurations, all that, but very rarely are we invited into Buckingham Palace. That's just one of those experiences that when I saw you got to do that, I thought, wow, what hasn't he done? So kudos to you for that one. To me, that just is just a very, very special moment among so many others. Let's talk about that Grammy and Rod Stewart, shall we?
Well, Rod, after I started making that first album, I started doing standards and getting known for it. You know,
Yeah,
Michael Bublé was after me. He was
I
in,
love him. He's great too. Yeah.
he's great and a good friend, but he was influenced by my first album and second album. You know, if you asked him, he'd tell you that. And so then he recorded a standards record. I kind of started the standards thing back up. Rod, uh, his producer at the time was a guy named Richard Perry, and who was a friend of mine. And Richard was a big fan of my first album. So he played it for Rod. He told Rod, we should do something like this. And Rod loved it. And they asked me to help them. They recorded the first album in my studio, and I did everything I could to help Rod get standards thing together. And then after they did the first one, Clive Davis asked me, well, why don't you produce a couple of standards records or a standard record? So
wow.
we did the Songbook Volume 3, and it was the biggest. It was Rod's first #1 album in 25 years, and won him and me the Grammy for it. So then I did 2 more after that. And then I'm working with Rod now on something else.
Yeah. You know, on your webpage, right, stevetyrell.com, there's a whole bunch of videos of you, right? And I love the one where you were accepting an award and you couldn't be there because you were in London. You said, oh, thank you so much for this award. I'm in London. And then in comes Rod Stewart. And he's like, yep. And I just love the friendship that you could see
right.
there.
I forgot all that stuff. Yeah.
Like, you got to go look at your own website. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love that.
I never look at my own website, but you reminded me of that. We were recording at Rod's, and I would have had to get on a plane, fly all the way to LA, do this thing, fly back the next day. And I just said,
no, it's too much.
I just can't do it. And Rod said, just do it here, mate. I'll stick my head in, you know.
I loved it. I loved it. It's one of my favorites. You know, you've got some beautiful videos on there. I mean, how could you remember everything? I don't remember everything from my own career.
Not
so
totally about that.
Yeah, no, that was a beautiful moment. And I'll tell you why. You could see the friendship between the two of you. And you could see the friendship between you and so many people you've worked with on many of those videos, right? Whether it's Burt Bacharach, whether it's Neil Sedaka, right? There's so many of the great artists that you've worked with, Carole King, you name it. And there's one common thread there. They all love you, Steve. Like, no one ever just says, oh my God, he was a pain in the neck. Like, it was always like, we love working with him. He's
the first session I ever did in New York for that lady, Florence Greenberg, I was telling you.
Yeah,
I did 2 songs with the Shirelles and 1 song with Carole King wrote the song that I did with the Shirelles. And she moved to New York, to LA after that. So I never got to know Carole that well. Yeah. Although she was best friends with Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. She was in that movie, what was her play? Beautiful?
Yeah, that was something.
Well, that's about Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil and Carole King and Jerry Goffin.
Exactly. So there's that whole 6 degrees of separation thing where even if you weren't working side by side with her,
but
it was part of
her husband, Jerry Goffin. One of the greatest lyricists that ever lived, and Barry and Cynthia, we've worked together for 60 years, and that was kind of they're her best friend. So Carole is kind of around the corner from me a little bit, but she started first. I'll never forget, Carole was so cute at the piano, like in the first session I ever did in New York. She had written all the music.
So here you are now living in Los Angeles. You've been here, I guess, about 30 years, right? Am I right about that?
More.
20 years? More. Okay. We'll leave it there. But you have a family and grandkids, and being an Italian guy, I know that everything to you, I think we've got a couple of photos of you with your family, is family, right? And even the people you've worked with have become your extended family. All the people that you've met and all the people that you know is a real testament to who you are. Tell me a little bit about being an Italian guy and family. Do you see your family a lot? Are you cooking up that pasta that you used to cook?
They're a constant everything in my life. I talk to my sister, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week.
I thought you were going to say 4 or 5 times a day, because that would be me. And my husband is always like, how do you keep talking to these people? I'm saying, this is what Italian people do. This is what we do. We're always on the phone.
I talk to my sister 5 times in one day. I just always feel a need to call her. She's really, my mother's gone, my father's gone. It's her and me. And we have a lot of fun together, but we're very, very close. My aunts are all gone. Most of my best friend Italian buddies, cousins, stuff, a lot of them are no longer with us.
But you got kids and you got grandkids and beautiful girlfriend. And
Now,
I know that you spend a lot of time. Go ahead.
half Italian. Janine is,
I
you
know. I know. We connect over that and a lot of other things. But I know that you spend a lot of time with family. Are you cooking up a storm still or not so much?
Janine is a great cook. And,
Ah, oh, I got to come over then when she's doing that
oh,
because
no, fantastic, fantastic. Any kind of cook, but she makes Italian food to die for. Her mother was a great.
I was gonna say I know her mom with that whole like chili cook off every year. I mean, I know all about that.
She still
So
got her trophies for her chili cook-off.
I
You know,
know she does. That's amazing. I
Janine is really the grounding force in all of our lives. My kids love her, and my late wife, their mother, has been dead for like 20 years, and my kids lost, had a big void in their life, but they lost
always.
a wonderful mother, and Janine has stepped right in and made them feel whole.
Oh, absolutely. So this album, before I get to this, Steve Tyrell, Shades of Ray, which has also been playing in my house for the past few days. I was getting ready to it upstairs. Oh, my husband walked in and he goes, I forgot which one it was, but he said, oh, my mother always used to play that. I love it. And he started dancing around the room, getting ready for work. We've been Steve Tyrell 24. It's beautiful, beautiful album. But before I let you go, is there anything maybe you could sing a little bit for us? You don't have to go to the piano behind you or anything, but gosh, I sure would love that.
But from Ray, you mean? There's so
No,
many
from
of them.
anything. Maybe from Father of the Bride if you want.
Someday when I'm awfully low and the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. That's Father of the Bride. Ray is Georgia, Georgia. A song of you comes as sweet and clear as moonlight through the pines. I love the Ray Charles songs. I'm trying to think of what would be good ones. You got any suggestions? Am I blue? And, we've got a lot of good ones on there. I wanted to do this Ray Charles album for years, but I was always a little bit hesitant. I wasn't hesitant to do a Frank Sinatra album or a Burt Bacharach album, but Ray Charles is the high priest, and I would start working on it and I'd think, who the hell wants to hear me sing these songs when you can hear Brother Ray? But I'm very happy with the way it came out. We tried to do our version of Ray's songs, not Ray's versions. You know what I mean? We didn't try to copy what he did, but he was such a musical influence in my life, my whole life. I mean, the first songs I ever sang in high school were Ray Charles songs. That I think they just come out organically. The respect and reverence that I have for him, and I'm really happy that I finally did it. Can't wait for people.
Beautiful. Oh, it's wonderful. And, it has been such an honor to talk to you. Your entire life and life in music is just so legendary, but it's who you are in particular when we interview other people about you and they say, oh, he's just a great guy. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope someday we could get you down to Little Italy and perform for us down there. That'd be really cool.
Heartbeat. I would do that in a heartbeat. Just
okay.
My band's in LA. It wouldn't be that hard to put together.
No, honestly, I'm going to talk to the folks who kind of run it and say, how can we do it? Where can we do it? Whether it's outdoors or sort of in an indoor venue.
A lot of times the people don't, the biggest thing that bugs me is a lot of people don't know just how Italian I am. Steve Tyrell, but I'm Italian through and through. My blood is Italian 100%. And so whenever I have a chance to play,
we will hold you to that because I know you'll do it. As long as you're available, I believe you'll come down and do it. Go ahead.
Do it. I want them people to know, that Stefano Luigi Baleo is in town.
That Mr. Baleo is in town. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very, very much. And Gosh, just an honor. Any parting words you'd like to say to us other than please, everybody, pick this up. It's a beautiful CD. Again, it drops in 2 days, and you could pick up the hard copy of this, I believe, in early November.
Right, but you can get downloaded. I hope people, everybody, the reaction to that album is
yeah, it's great.
Great. And better than any album I've ever released, actually, where people have heard it. So I'm proud of it. And I want people to check it out. I think you'll like it. All these songs are incredible anyway.
And you're also going on tour. I believe you're hitting New Hampshire next, right, in early October. And you've been at the Catalina Club in Los Angeles. That is a great place. For all of our LA people, please go and see Steve.
For 25 years, I think. Once or twice a year. It's like the only real jazz club that's left in Los Angeles. But
no, it's a great night too. It's a lot of fun there. And hopefully soon for our folks in New York, you'll be back at the Carlyle where you've had a residence. So hopefully that's going to happen maybe next year. And you're going to be on tour. All the tour dates are on your website. So gosh, Steve Tyrell, an honor to have you.
My pleasure, my honor. It was great talking to you. I knew when we had the first conversation, we just went on and on and on for talking about different things.
Well, there's so much to talk about. Oh, quick question, just one answer. Is there somebody you haven't performed with yet or performed in front of yet that you'd love to, like the Pope or something?
Well, he's Italian. He might have liked it. I don't know. I never think in those terms,
Yeah, interesting.
But there's so many great people in this world.
Yeah.
I'm always honored, like when people come into the Carlyle and like the show and
amazing.
And they're like big deals, and I remember one of my highlights of the Carlyle was when Hillary Clinton lost the election, and she had supported me a few times there. The first place she went after she lost the election was the Carlyle. So I had at the end of my set, That's Life. That song?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, That's Life. Did you point at her or what? Did you just?
Just when you're feeling down on your luck or something. Oh God, I wish I could have remembered it. Oh man, forget it. Now he's trying to look it up.
Yeah, that's your assistant.
The line at the end of her. Go to the last line. Yeah, he's showing me what it was.
This is kind of like what it's like behind the scenes, everybody. It's like, you're like, wait, what is that? What is that? And then you got the producer and the assistant going, here it is.
It's amazing that I haven't screwed up more,
Oh, please, Steve, you ought to see me every day. It's amazing I remember anything. So,
yeah, right. I know. But just when I find myself, that's what I was looking for. Just when I find myself flat on my back. Flat on. Just let me start again. Just when I find myself flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back in the race, and that's life. Well, I had it in the set that night that she came, and I pointed to her and I sang, she had just lost the race, and I pointed it, and there's a lot of Republican people that go to the Carlyle. The whole place went nuts. They were like, we just saw one of the coolest things ever, So that was, that was a high point for me.
And that was worth waiting for. That was a wonderful story, Steve Tyrell. Thank you so much. You're just a doll. You're such a delight. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Please remember, everybody, pick this up. Shades of Ray, phenomenal. And all of his other work too. Find it on his website. You can order it wherever you get your music. Please pick it up, Steve Tyrell. And thanks everybody for joining our podcast. A little longer than most, but I would say it was worth it. So thank you very much for joining Little Italy of LA podcast. We also run this on Deborah Kobylt Live, so you can find it 2 places, and it's kind of everywhere. As a video show, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, IGTV, and then we put it out there on all of our audio platforms too, iTunes, Amazon, iHeart. Wherever you are, you can find our podcast, audio, and video. So thank you so much for joining us today. Little Italy of Los Angeles and Steve Tyrell, an honor.
One last word. You have to come over and let Janine make you some pasta.
No, that's a given. Please, I promise. Just pick the day, text me, Steve, and you know I'll be there because I know she's a great cook.
She loves
so.
Y'all are already.
Yeah, no, she's a beautiful person, beautiful. So thank you both very, very much, and Isaac over there too for helping navigate our wonderful interview. There you are. See, it's all family, everybody. It's all family. Steve, Isaac, everybody. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you again next time. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.